On your deathbed, would you have rather lived a life of rejection or a life of regret? I was heading for a life of regret, but when I compared regret to a life of rejection, I actually felt and feel comfortable embracing the life of rejection. Because embracing rejection is good. The path I'm on now makes me feel unstoppable. I'm 21, and even though I'm still young, I wish I knew how to take control of my decisions earlier. Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm Jaden Harris. I currently am building my coaching business as well as this YouTube channel. I aim to help young men achieve a path and a life of physical, spiritual, and material freedom. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the first point. Decisions based on false desires never equal long-term improvement. If you're making decisions based on a desire, and let's say this desire is, let's use money as an example. Let's say the desire is to make more money and become more wealthy. So yeah, let's take money as an example. So decisions to try and increase your wealth, to try and increase the amount of money in your bank account, you may make the right decisions, but those decisions are not actually going to give you long-lasting improvement. Because if you're making decisions based on a false desire, your desires will always change. And you've got to really look at within yourself what desires, what motivates you, what are your fundamental core principles, what you actually want out of life. Because some people want a lot of money, and that may for them be a fundamental desire. But for most young men like us nowadays, the desire is not to really be monetarily wealthy, but to be free, successful, and wealthy in that regard. We need to start using wealth as the metric for general improvement and general success to things that you find valuable in your life. And you'll never find long-lasting improvement from these false desires because you don't actually want it. You got to figure out what you actually want. You can then start to make long-lasting improvements. Short-term kind of superficial desires, money, it's especially hard. And look, it's not easy in today's day and age. In a materialistic Western world, money is obviously going to be a go-to desire. But what you got to understand is there's people that do not have a lot of money and are actually happier than you because they're fulfilling their desires and they're aligned with their true desires. You could be a wealthy man if you were in tip-top shape, living your best life in terms of just going to the gym. That could bring you satisfaction long-term. False desires are the enemy here. You don't want to have false desires. And that leads me on to my next point, which is about short-term solutions. A lot of people like to have short-term solutions. They like the quick fix. And that's because in today's Western world, it is very easy to get quick dopamine hits, quick fixes. So when you do a quick fix, you get that dopamine rush, and that tells you naturally, through how humans are biologically and how we have evolved to be, that tells you that dopamine, that thing that you did to get the dopamine was good, therefore you should do it more. That is dangerous. Short-term solutions never bring you long-lasting improvement, especially if you have false desires. Get rid of the false desires, and then we can start talking about whether this short-term solution is beneficial for you, or whether it be rather this long-term solution which would be beneficial for you. But you've got to get rid of the false desires, and then you've got to target the short-term solutions and actually analyze. Once you've got an idea of what your true desires are, then analyze, okay, in the short term, what can I do? Medium term, long term. You'll end up a lot happier pursuing an overall goal. Let's get back to this idea of money as a motivator. So a lot of my childhood, money was a motivator for me. It was a motivator because I didn't have a lot of money growing up. My parents were struggling with money. My parents never had a lot of zeros in their bank accounts. And then that developed over time into a false desire. And money as a false desire is bad, because when you start doing things for money, you forget your morals. And once you forget your morals, everything goes out the window. Everything would be relative. And when everything is relative, well, there's no morality. And we're seeing that, not to get too involved in politics, but we're seeing that in the Western world. Everyone wants these material, superficial things, not actually looking deeper, and that's why a lot of people are unhappy in their life. I'm trying to still get used to this Digi-Osmo Pocket thing gimbal, so if the camera angle isn't great in this video, just bear with me. Now, with money being a short-term desire, we can then start to see why in this world, this Western materialistic world, people are experiencing problems. And that leads me on to the point of the age of the double-edged sword, the age of the internet. The internet is a double-edged sword, especially for people who are stuck in mindsets that are scarce. A scarcity mindset is something you may have come across before. You tend to see this in working class environments. It's not a general rule, but in working class environments, you tend to be more reluctant to spend money. You still have people in working classes with abundancy mindsets, and that's why people from the working class get to a point in life where they're actually in the upper class. You see it with some of the richest people in the world, and I don't want to get my point confused. So I want to make clear, money as your primary desire is not in itself a bad thing. It's when that primary desire is a false desire. When the money is the only thing you desire because you don't have anything else. You're neglecting all your other desires. So we're in the age of the internet, where information is accessible to everyone. Information can be created, curated, produced in India, the slums in India, and that information could be a golden piece of nugget advice in someone who's struggling in an environment in the cartel in Colombia. And that person could use that information and get from their cartel life to being someone who we would consider wealthy. And as soon as when we do that, when we look at these examples, we've got to realise, reject the absolutist thinking in that the internet is full of scammers and the online economy is full of scammers, because that's another problem that I've had. And it comes from a scarcity mindset, but thinking that everything is a scam is not going to get you anywhere. But also being blinded by ignorance, trusting everything you see on the internet is going to get you in a bad place as well. So this is why I say the internet is a double-edged sword. It's the best time to be alive, and you'll hear everyone saying it's the best time to be alive because we have all the information we need to be successful online and to do what we need to do to reach these goals, reach these desires and make long-lasting improvement. But it's as soon as you realise that you have this tendency to think either or, scam or not scam. When you break out of that scarcity mindset and embrace the abundancy mindset, that is when you can pursue meaningful changes, short-term, medium-term, long-term solutions to your true desires. So in effect of me not pursuing my true desires and pursuing false desires, it was my mental health took a considerable decline, and my life trajectory, my life path towards my destiny, because if you're like anything like me, you do have those 3 a.m. motivation rushes, but you don't know what you're quite destined for, but you're destined for something. I would pursue these false desires and it make my mental health tumble, and it's probably taken about a year off, probably longer, let's be honest, about 2 years off my progress from where I would have been. Because I've adopted the abundancy mindset, I'm not worrying about that, I'm worrying about what I can do to change for the future, be optimistic. Choosing your environment is probably the best takeaway advice I could give you at the moment. Even though there will be short-term pain, there will be short-term sacrifice that you'll have to make. And that's where you've got to do the thinking. But my one kind of general advice, and this is not silver bullet advice, I don't want to give this advice as something that would fix all your problems, but if there's one thing I'd want you to take away from this video, is to change your environment. There is a famous saying, you are the sum of your 5 friends, or something along those lines. That is true. The 5 people you spend the most time with will generate into you and will make you an amalgamation of those people. So choose your environment wisely. If you're interacting with people that are not very ambitious, smoke weed all the time, don't like to work, have a poor work ethic, and you can see that's kind of against yourself, against your traits as a person, then I'm afraid you know what you need to do. And as soon as you change that, as soon as you get out of that environment, you can start making change. Now, getting out of that environment is going to be hard, it's going to be difficult, but that is the part of the journey. you don't know where you're going, it is a leap into the dark, but that would be my takeaway advice. I'm in the process of building my coaching business. I'm not ready to launch it yet, but you'll hear about that soon. If you're interested in interacting with me more, you can click the link in my description. It takes you to my Instagram and we can have a chat over there. But I will see you on the next video on Monday, 4 p.m, and hopefully it'll be a bit less windy.